Well, I think Director Wray has a lot of explaining to do to the American people. These emails on Twitter that have been revealed, they ought to make every Democrat, every Republican in America who believes in the First Amendment gag.
Twitter Files Part 6 was just dropped this evening by investigative journalist Matt Tiabbi, who's provided the information from CEO of Twitter, Elon Musk, who provided information showing links between the FBI and former head of trust and safety of Twitter, Yoel Roth. But first, please like and subscribe to my channel. Also comment below what you think of the Twitter Files as a whole. Now let's dig into Part 6 of the Twitter Files. Breaking news from the Daily Wire. New Twitter files show how federal, state governments monitor American social media posts. And I did want to mention that I typically like using left-leaning news websites to use their own establishment media against them. But whenever there's a coordinated effort by the mainstream media to cover this story up in particular, there's really nothing I can do about it. So I will use whatever media outlet is reporting on it. If you want to see each and every post for yourself, check out Matt Tiabbi's Twitter at @mtiabbi. The Twitter thread starts with Twitter Files Part 6, Twitter, the FBI, Subsidiary. This should not come as a surprise to anyone that's actually paying attention over the last several years, but he describes the Twitter Files are revealing more and more each day about the government collecting data and actually flagging posts themselves on social media and tagging individual accounts. Also talks about Twitter's contact with the FBI and it being pervasive and acting as if it was a subsidiary of the actual FBI itself. Between January of 2020 and November of 2022, there were over 150 emails between the FBI and former Twitter trust and safety chief, Yoel Roth. Tiabbi goes on to say, but a surprisingly high number are requests by the FBI for Twitter to take action on election misinformation. And he says even involving joke tweets from low follower accounts, I actually don't think that's important at all. I don't care how many followers you have. The government should not be spying on private citizens. Our own tax dollars are going to entities directly pressuring Twitter to moderate content and suppress freedom of speech. The Twitter Files reveal that agencies like the FBI and DHS were regularly sending Twitter content for them to actually flag and moderate. Pretty sure there's a name for this whenever private business and governments work together against its own citizens. Tiabbi says what stands out is the sheer quantity, but it should not be happening at all. Here is an example of the FBI in San Francisco sending in to Twitter 4 different accounts to flag. Twitter personnel then went into activist mode, finding reasons to suspend all 4 accounts. Tiabbi is trying to show that the FBI is going to be hyper intrusive in both directions, but actually I think he got this one wrong. At Claire Foster PhD, I believe is actually more of a troll account trying to show the absurdity of the left, not actually a left-leaning account. But in either case, the FBI shouldn't be controlling what anyone says online. The account says, anyone who cannot discern obvious satire from reality has no place making decisions for others or working for the feds. In an internal email from November 5th, 2022, this year's midterms that happened last month, sent the San Francisco field office a long list of accounts that may warrant additional action. Here is that email from the field office listing each individual account. It doesn't matter if they've done this once or a million times. The fact that they are doing this should terrify each one of you watching this video. And of course, the FBI had to follow up the next day and make sure that Twitter saw all of the accounts that they needed flagged or essentially suspended and taken off Twitter. Lexatola makes the same point Tiabbi was making previously in talking about the actual account sizes and their reach and what all are they looking at whenever they are looking at these tiny micro accounts, which is genuinely unbelievable that they have the time to do that. A name you might have seen in the news recently, Jim Baker, who has since departed from Twitter as Deputy General Counsel and former top FBI lawyer. He received a letter from a Twitter executive outlining the results from her soon-to-be weekly meetings with federal agencies. Absolutely unbelievable that a private company would ever need to meet weekly with federal agencies. Also, the Twitter exec explicitly asked the FBI if there's any impediments to sharing the classified information with the industry. Of course, the FBI said no impediments exist. Unreal. The old adage, it's one big happy club and we're just not in it. It literally couldn't be more accurate in this case. At the bottom of the letter, she lists a series of escalations apparently raised at the meeting, which were already handled. She gives a specific example of one that violates the civic integrity policy. Here's another internal letter from January 2021 showing an FBI list of possible violative accounts and content. Most seem like they're the same. Get out there and vote on Wednesday, which is clearly against their policy, according to the FBI and I guess Twitter as well. In March of 2021, an email with the FBI liaison thanks the senior Twitter exec for the chance to speak to you and your team, then delivers quote-unquote products, which are essentially DHS bulletins stressing the need for greater collaboration between law enforcement and private sector partners. I'm sure they have the best interest of you and I at heart. And it's amazing. They use their own 2016 Russian hoax to perpetuate this entire censorship scheme. The FBI and Twitter work together to violate as many people's freedom of speech as possible. They were so happy with themselves, they even congratulated each other on Slack. There were multiple ways for the government to flag and notify Twitter of the violative content or accounts. And of course, the reports came from different agencies so they could spread out spying on its own citizens. They spread it out just so one group or one entity is not held liable for the entire program, but also it makes it a lot harder to track down exactly who is violating the Constitution and our individual rights. And of course, the states wanted in on infringing on our individual rights. Here's California officials asking why there was no action taken, in all caps, I might add. Here's the tweet that the California official was alluding to. Don't worry, higher education wanted to get in on the action as well. They reported a video about Pennsylvania election workers. Why would a private university in the state of California report a video about an election all the way on the other side of the country? That is mind-blowing. This is a side note. It has nothing to do with this current story, but interesting that FTX founder, SBF, both of his parents are law professors at Stanford. And of course, the CIS at Stanford is a DHS contractor, which describes itself as partners with the CISA at the DHS. And the EIP is one of a series of government-affiliated think tanks that review mass amounts of content. According to Tiabbi, the takeaway, what most people think of as the deep state, is really a tangled collaboration of state agencies, private contractors, and sometimes state-funded NGOs. He says the lines become so blurred as to be meaningless. I think it may be even worse than that, where the government agencies are actually the ones controlling and running the private entities. That is it for Twitter Files Part 6. Please subscribe and like this video. As always, don't let the propaganda machine win. Always think for yourself. We'll see you next time. Later.